It is NHL Draft Lottery Day, so today we're going to take a look at the Draft Lottery odds for the teams that are in the lottery and who's got the best chance of getting first overall. We're going to take a brief look at some history of the Draft Lottery as well, review the rules, some of the top prospects, and do a quick simulation. We'll jump into that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, today is NHL Draft Lottery Day. Very exciting day for teams that are not in the playoffs to find out if they have a shot here at picking first overall in the 2021 NHL Draft. So obviously the teams that finish near the bottom of the standings have the best odds. So we're going to review those odds and see who has the best chance to win. We're going to review some recent history here during the current format of how this has gone in the last number of years. So just to give you an idea of what to expect in that regard, we're going to discuss some rule changes that are impacting this year and next year. And of course, we're also going to take a look here at some of the top players that you can expect your favorite teams to be looking at here once we get to the draft in July. And of course, we're also going to do some simulations on the computer just to see how things could actually go. So let's first up start by talking about some of the most recent rule changes that were announced earlier that will be impacting things this year and next. In the recent past, we've seen the top 3 selections be in the draft lottery. Well, that's only going to be the top 2 now. So that takes effect this year. But the other changes they announced kick in next year. So for example, starting next year, you can only move up a maximum of 10 spots. So obviously not all teams in the lottery would be eligible to win and move up to number 1. I mean, they could win the lottery and move up 10 spots, which is still a really big help and a nice victory for them, but it may not get them first overall. So the other thing that's going to be changing starting next year as well is that you will not be able to win the lottery more than 2 times in a 5-year span. But starting next year, everything starts completely fresh. So it doesn't matter who's won recently or who wins this year. That's all going to be in the past. They start with a fresh outlook next year. So that's going to be kicking in then. But for today, we have 2 teams that will be lucky this evening to have their names drawn and get the top 2 overall selections. Now, let's take a look here at the NHL odds based on the teams that are not in the lottery and see who has the best chances to win. So, of course, the Buffalo Sabres were your bottom-ranked team in the NHL this year, so they do have the best odds at 16.6%. You've got the Anaheim Ducks with the next one at 12.1. Then you've got Seattle. A part of Seattle's agreement, the same as when Vegas came into the NHL, is that they would be given the 3rd best chances in the lottery. So they have the same odds as New Jersey, who was the 3rd worst team in the NHL this season. So the Kraken and the Devils both have a 10.3% chance at winning the first overall selection. You also have the Columbus Blue Jackets next at 8.5. The Detroit Red Wings at 7.6, the San Jose Sharks at 6.7, the LA Kings at 5.8, the Vancouver Canucks at 5.4, the Ottawa Senators at 4.5, the Arizona Coyotes at 3.1, and their pick has been forfeited. So if the Arizona Coyotes name is drawn, the NHL will immediately do a redraw, and that spot will be given to another team here in the lottery. So I know that's probably a question that a lot of you might have been thinking and asking yourselves, what happens if the Coyotes win since that pick was taken from them? Well, that's how the NHL is planning to handle it. There will be a redraw if that indeed does take place. And the Chicago Blackhawks are next at 2.7, the Calgary Flames at 2.2, the Philadelphia Flyers at 1.8, the Dallas Stars at 1.4, and lastly here the New York Rangers with a measly 1% chance to win. But as you know, it's not always the teams near the top here with the best odds that win. If you think about it, the Buffalo Sabres have the best odds to win at 16.6%. But that also leaves a really big number of a high percentage that they won't win. So clearly, there's a lot of factors here at play. Obviously, some luck involved. And let's take a look now at some recent history to show you who has won in the past and what spot they had for odds, etc. during the draft lottery. Now, I'm only going to go back to 2012, which is where this current format has been used. Before that, you could it was more like what we're moving to next year, where you could still win the lottery but not get first overall because you can only move up a certain number of spots. Of course, during these years as well, there were times when you could get 3 spots in the lottery instead of just 2. So things were slightly different, but we're mainly just looking at who won with first overall because the odds have changed slightly here. Obviously, the odds for this year are slightly different than years past because we have an additional team in the mix with Seattle. And of course, when when Vegas came in as well a few years before that, the odds had to be adjusted then as well. So looking at recent past here, of course, last year, the New York Rangers were the lucky team. They were the 14th best odds. That's the first time we've ever seen a team that low actually win the lottery. Of course, that's the Alexis Lafreniere draft where they took with the first overall pick. In 2019, the New Jersey Devils were victorious in the lottery, who had the third best odds. That's the Jack Hughes draft. In 2018, the Buffalo Sabres did have the best odds and they actually won, and that's the Rasmus Dahlin draft. In 2017, you saw the New Jersey Devils win again. They had the fifth best odds when they took Nico Hischier. In 2016, the Maple Leafs had the best odds and actually won, and of course that's when they took Austin Matthews. 2015, the Oilers had the third best odds and they won. Of course, that's the McDavid draft. 2014, you had the Florida Panthers with the number 2 best odds where they selected Aaron Ekblad. 2013, the Avalanche had the second best odds, and that's where they selected Nathan MacKinnon. And of course, in 2012, you had the Edmonton Oilers again with the second best odds, and that's when they took Nail Yakupov. So clearly, we have a lot of different things happening here. We had the Buffalo Sabres in those years had the best odds 3 different times, and they only had 1 draft lottery victory. So clearly, the Sabres have had, I guess you could say it's bad luck, but really, if you look at the odds, it's really not that bad. The odds are always more against you than they are in favor of you. We saw the team with the second best odds win on 3 different occasions. We saw the team with the third best odds win on 2 different occasions. We've only seen the team with the best odds win twice in that time frame. Then, of course, we saw one team here, the Devils, win as the 5th best team, and that was in 2017. And, of course, last year, the Rangers was another anomaly, being the 14th best odds. So clearly, if you look at it here, the teams with the second and third best odds seem to win the most. If you combine those, that would give you the best odds. So could we see teams like the Ducks or the Kraken or the Devils again be the most likely teams here to pull out victory in the draft lottery and get the first or second spot? That, to me, kind of tells us what we're likely looking at. But of course, only time will tell, and you have to have a little bit of luck involved. So we're also now going to take a quick look here at some of the top prospects you can expect these teams to be looking at here, just to give you a quick run through of some of the top guys. This is not a mock draft by any means. We're just going to go through by position, and I'm going to give you an idea of some of the guys that you can expect your favorite teams to be looking at here once we have the idea of who's going to be picking in what order. Of course, it's a defenseman-heavy draft here. There's a lot of D going to be taken in the top 10, led by Owen Power in Michigan. He's likely going to be the first overall selection. 6'6", draws some comparison to a guy like Victor Hedman. So clearly, Owen Power is a very interesting prospect in that regard. You've got another Hughes brother, Luke Hughes, coming through. Of course, the younger brother of Jack and Quinn, another defenseman, a little different style than both of his brothers, but expected to go fairly high here. Could he end up playing with one of his brothers? Both of his brothers' teams are in the lottery here, so I guess, it certainly is possible. I think New Jersey has a better shot at getting him to Vancouver because they'll be picking at a higher spot, and I would suspect that by the time the Canucks pick that, he's likely going to be off the board, especially with the Devils picking there as well. You've also got the big Swedish defenseman Simon Edvinsson and Brandt Clark. Brandt Clark's another right-shot defenseman. Clark's another right-shot defenseman who in my opinion, has star potential and could be a top-pairing guy too. Now, if your team's looking for a center iceman, Matt Beniers is likely going to be the first center off the board. Of course, the U.S.-born center is a pretty solid player all around, can play a two-way game, and certainly can provide some offense as well. But again, it really boils down to what your teams are looking for. There's some different types of centers here, including Kent Johnson. Johnson's also another good center prospect. You got William Eklund, obviously one of the top skaters from the European side of things. Eklund can also play wing. It's not a for sure thing he'll be a center at the NHL level, but still a very interesting prospect. And then you get the big, strong Mason McTavish as well. McTavish is another guy who's expected to be a top 6 center who can play with some size, some physicality, some grit, and give you a fair bit of offense. So another very interesting prospect there. A couple of key wingers would include guys like Dylan Guenther. Guenther very well could be a top 5, 6, 7 pick as well. The left winger from the Western Hockey League, certainly very offensively gifted player. You get Fabian Lysell from Sweden as well, another gifted winger, expected to go high here in the draft. And you've got some goalies. Now, we've talked a lot about Jesper Wallstedt in our previous simulations and mock drafts. who's expected to be the first goalie taken in this draft. And I know myself, I've said many times, based on where the Red Wings are likely going to be picking, is a really good prospect for Detroit. However, there's lots of other teams that could look at him as well, but he's likely going to go anywhere. He could go top 10 or top 15 for sure. But there's another goalie as well that is expected to have a good shot at going in the first round, and that's Sebastian Cossa, who's a 6'6" goaltender from Canada, playing in the Western Hockey League as well. Some terrific numbers out west. So another goalie that could be turning some heads and likely go probably near the second half of the first round, maybe somewhere between that 20 to 30 range is likely where I would expect him to go, but it really boils down to what teams need, what players, and how they view them. Of course, everything's a little bit different. So to wrap up this video, we're going to jump onto the computer. We're just going to go onto tankathon.com. We're going to run the simulator just a few times just to see some fun scenarios and how things could work out, just to see if the odds that we discussed here, how they could actually play out. And then that'll be all, and we'll be back later on tonight, obviously, like I said, with a reaction to how things actually turn out. All right, so here we are on tankathon.com, where we can do the NHL Draft Lottery Simulator. Of course, you've been following along the channel. You've seen we've done some of these simulations numerous times throughout the year, trying to figure out who could win first overall, and then conducted some mock drafts. So once this is all done here this evening, we know the exact order. There will be more mock drafts that can be more based on the actual order here coming on the channel and in the near future. So let's run the simulator here a few times, and then I will just kind of want to see what can happen here. Just obviously strictly just for fun. So here we go. Let's do the first simulation where we have a winner of the Anaheim Ducks. So the Ducks and the Sabres get the top two selections. Obviously that means that Anaheim moves up one and Buffalo moves down one. So obviously that's good for the Ducks, good for the Sabres. Not a drastic amount of changes there. So let's reset this and try this again. Second time here, we've got the Devils and the Senators. So obviously that's some different luck there. Obviously the Devils would be moving up 3 spots and the Sens would be moving up 8. So that's a pretty significant win for both of those teams. Of course, as we just went through the history here, the Devils have had really good luck in the draft lottery here in the recent past. So obviously that's 1 win for Anaheim, 1 win for New Jersey. Let's do a third one. And boom, the Ducks again. Like as I mentioned earlier, the teams with the second and third best odds seem to have had the most luck here over the time. The Red Wings moving up into the second spot is also good for them. The Red Wings really could probably need one of the first overall picks or top 2 picks more than just about any team here. So that's good for them. So we've got 3 simulations done. We've got 2 wins by the Ducks, 1 by the Devils. Let's try this a 4th time. And boom, the Sabres win. Obviously, that'd be huge for the Sabres after, an offseason coming up for them that could be very unpredictable with some potential big guys leaving town here that might want out. Of course, the Red Wings again move up to the second spot. Also really solid for them. So we've got 2 wins for the Ducks, 1 for the Devils, and 1 for the Sabres. Boom, the Los Angeles Kings. Just like that, moving up 7 spots, and the Buffalo Sabres remain in the number 2 spot. Obviously, that would be a huge win for the Kings, but not to disrespect the Kings, but I don't think they need the first overall pick anywhere near like a lot of these other teams. So personally, the Kings are so deep with prospects, and I think they have an incredibly bright future. As much as that would be great for them, I personally would like to see some different teams win, but we'll see what happens here. Next up, we've got boom, the Seattle Kraken and the Flyers moving up. That would be phenomenal as well. The Seattle Kraken get to pick first overall in their very first NHL draft. And of course, the Flyers moving up, from way down here, down from that number 14 spot up to number 2. I mean, that's a significant increase for the Flyers. So again, some weird and wonky things can sometimes happen here in the lottery. Now let's go one more. Boom, the Anaheim Ducks again. That's the 3rd time they've won, as we've been doing this with the Sabres again at number 2. So it's looking like, based on if this is telling us anything, any kind of foreshadowing, the Ducks might be our winners tonight. One more time, the San Jose Sharks, and they actually have their own pick this time. Of course, last year they had some good luck too, except that pick was traded to the Senators, where they were able to draft Timmy Stützle. So obviously this is good for them if they could get picked first overall as well. The Jackets moving up to that number 2 spot. So there you go there. We'll do one more here. And we've got Arizona. Now, of course, as we know, the Arizona Coyotes have their pick forfeited. So if this actually does end up happening tonight at the draft lottery, the NHL will conduct a new pick. So obviously they're going to redraw. So if we do it again, let's see who gets Arizona's pick. It's Buffalo. So there we go. So Buffalo and Anaheim have been the teams that have won the most here during these simulations. Like I said, based on history, it seems to tell us that the teams that are with the second and third best odds seem to be favored the most. Now, of course, this one too, a good thing to point out is the Rangers. Man, the Rangers have been lucky the last few years. They got Kakko and Lafreniere, Kakko number 2, Lafreniere number 1 recently with some really good lottery luck. If they did it again, that would be insane. So we'll see what happens tonight. So certainly, I hope you'll watch the draft lottery. Stay tuned for my reaction and the results coming later tonight once this is all completed. And then said in the future here, we'll start conducting some mock drafts once we know those selections. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.